genesis of that book, and how do you then preach that with your staff on how they coach the athletes that they're working with?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So the language of coaching was the genesis of it goes right on back to, for me, college, where I was watching other trainers when I was still cutting my teeth trying to learn this game of how to coach people to physically develop their bodies. And by chance or choice, and I'm still not sure which one it is, I just gravitated to the fact that what seemed to separate the good coaches from the coaches that, let's say, were still in pursuit of good or great was what they said, was how they interacted, was how they treated the individual. Because, I mean, everyone was benching on Monday. Everyone was doing buys and tries. Everyone was kind of talking about anatomy, and the functional movement screen, was all the craze at the time. And, everyone looking at anatomy trains, and super training was still actually finally being read by people at the time. You know what I mean? Like, that was still all the stuff. Everyone was dipping their hand in the same cookie jar. But what made it different, what felt different, was not what they did, not even why they did it, because they'd all give good explanations. It's how they did it. And, I always joke, Simon Sinek wrote Start With Why. I'd like to write the book one day, we'll finish with how. Because the magic is in the how. The doing is in the how. The experience is in the how. The why is a spark, yes. But that flame burning, right, is in the how. And so I kind of parked that idea for a long time because I didn't know what to do with it. But I knew it was so important. And then inevitably, when I got the chance to take over the NFL Combine Development Program at Exos in 2009, I came face to face with my inadequacy in that department. In that I had the best facility, I had literally the best NFL or future NFL athletes at the time, and I'm coaching them, but I'm sitting there realizing that I'm saying 10,000 different things, and I'm spraying cues across them, but they're all moving together. I'm talking while they're moving. I'm not directing it specifically. I'm not checking in to see if they heard me, let alone understood me, let alone applied it. And all of a sudden, on a cold January morning in Phoenix, Arizona, I kind of felt this moment of awakening. And as odd as this sounds, I think a lot of coaches haven't realized this. And I said, I'm a variable. I actually have a direct impact on these individuals in the same way the physical program that I wrote does. And I remember at the time I'd go to coaches I respect, they say, well, how do you get better at coaching? And they're like, oh, you just do it. I'm like, but what is the art of coaching? Oh, it's just, it's just talking to people. It's just doing it over and over again. I couldn't get a better recommendation that to get better at coaching, you just have to do it. I'm like, but hold on, over here you have all this methodology on reps and sets and exercise and structure, specificity and variability and progressive overload. You can give me all of this blueprint, but you can't give me any blueprint on how to coach better. And so I just wasn't satisfied with that. And inevitably, you go to motor learning research, skill acquisition, psychology, educational psychology, sociology, right? Communication. You go back to the old Carl Jung and some of the original Williams. And all of a sudden you realize, well, hold on. There is a blueprint around human behavior. There is a blueprint around communication and what kind of communication sticks versus what kind of communication is porous. How we like to take on information and be able to apply it to our movement. All this information exists, but it's wrapped up in, long jargonous words and dusty old textbooks, and nobody's actually taken it out of the earth and put it into a simple form that people can digest. This information needs to be processed, cleaned up, and shared. And so I went to the trenches in my own work, looking at what I said, when I said it, how I said it, verbal, nonverbal. I started working with my athletes in the test lab. Hey, did you hear what I just said? No, coach. Okay, I'm going to say it again. Okay, here's this cue. I want you to think about this while you move. Okay, boom. That felt better. That didn't feel better. Okay, let's try this. And inevitably, one rep, one cue at a time, I made it unavoidably obvious that this dialogue was going to help this athlete become better. That ultimately it was going to shape their mind on its way to shaping their body. And that we were going to be as disciplined in mind as we were in body with every single repetition. And not only was every single drill going to be prepared, but there was going to be consideration, albeit with a far more flexible attitude, in how we coached those drills. And over time, PhDs and books later, I've now shared this with the world in what I feel is a flexible structure that does not provide rules, but provides principles to get you to the words that work, to flexibly allow you to engage with a person, to decrease the barrier to understanding and application. I want coaches to be able to learn a pathway to communicating effectively in the same way they've learned a pathway to programming effectively.
Have you had any desire or any request to do the same thing on how to do that interpersonally?
I get the question a lot around, I'll have people who like sport but work in business. And they read the book and they're like, wow, this whole idea of connection, meeting people where they're at, presenting information in a way that lowers the barrier to understanding and application. I see it so clearly in teaching movement. How can I use this in my one-on-one meetings, in my team meetings, to get concepts across to people? And so I have had the request, but I haven't necessarily put my time into it, Justin, most notably because I believe there are a lot of really good resources out there around communication generally, interpersonal communication. Certainly, right, there's plenty on presentation skills and how to actually at a podium level convey and communicate to a broader group of individuals in a monologue type of a format. And so, I never endeavored out to necessarily provide a one-size-fits-all communication tool to cover all contexts with which communication takes place. However, in my own work, I have started to expand what I talk about in terms of the role of interpersonal communication. And the way I talk about it is in terms of a communication landscape. And so when I talk about a communication landscape, and here I'm specifically mapping this still to coaching a client, an athlete, or a patient, there is a natural flow that goes from interpersonal communication to movement communication. Such that, Justin, if you're my client, you show up. Let's say you're actually my athlete. I've been working with you for a few weeks, and let's say you've been working on your speed. You're coming back from a hamstring pull, and you're finally in your return to run. The first thing I'm going to do with you is just have a chat. Hey, Justin, how you feeling today? Okay, how was your weekend? It was a long weekend. Did you go to the game? Hey, how's your daughter doing? How are you feeling? Oh, you're in school. How are your studies going? Okay, what's going on? Oh, you went over to see, so-and-so. How was that? We're just chatting, just to get a sense of how you're doing, to connect at an individual level. Then I'm going to get into how's your body feeling? How did you sleep? Okay, if we worked on anything or asked you to work on anything in the meantime, how's that going? And so what I'm doing is I'm collecting this interpersonal interaction to, one, just develop a relationship because I care about you, but also through that, I'm getting your emotional, physical, psychological sense of how your body has shown up today. That information is going to be very valuable to me on possibly how I run the warm-up, how I communicate with you, what kind of energy I bring. Are you kind of down? Do I need to G you up? Are you coming in hot?
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.